Noam, we're starting. Come in, everybody. Ladies, gentlemen. Chef. Huh? Goldie, Bo.
I got lost. I'm not sure why I'm here.
Stop.
I'm looking for the upper floor.
Yeah. Have a seat. So thank you very much for coming. And my name is Mel. And 10 years ago, I had an offer. By training, I'm a scientist. But by passion, I'm a entrepreneur. I play music and I write children's books. And I'm more passionate about these things than being a scientist, so I quit my job as a scientist. My whole life has been thinking between boxes, and what I want to do today is to share with you some of the things that I've learned. And what I've learned is, por favor, is mostly because I've been teaching university classes in creative thinking over the past 10 years. Now, some of you may ask, can you teach creativity? And the answer is I still don't know, but that's why I give the courses to try and find out. But this is not a lecture. This is a workshop. It's a discussion. And it would be great if somebody took a few notes, so we'll have something to send out when we get back home. Anybody volunteer to take a few notes? Okay, great. So what I believe is that creativity is not about thinking outside the box. If you go to Google and you search thinking outside the box, you'll find about over 1 million results. And that turns out to be because in the 1970s there was this puzzle, where you had to connect 9 dots in 4 lines, and you had to go out of the box to solve the puzzle. And this created a whole genre where we say thinking outside the box. But thinking outside the box is a big problem because it's a very big box outside. I mean, it's a very big universe. So you have a box. Let's say the box could be a frame of thought, a state of mind, a category, a way of thinking, a language. And people say to you, well, think outside the box. But where are you going to think outside the box? And if you manage to succeed, which I don't, then what you've done is essentially created another box. Then there's another school of people, most of them engineers, I hope I'm not insulting engineers here, who say inventiveness is not about thinking outside the box, it's about thinking inside the box. And if you Google that, you'll find about 250,000 search results, which is pretty amazing, right? Thinking inside the box. Thinking within the category, within the discipline, within the language, within the frame of thought, within the state of mind. And that is where most inventiveness occurs, if you're a scientist or an engineer. And then there's something that I didn't invent, which is called thinking between boxes. But if you Google thinking between boxes, you only find 60 results. And one of them is a book that I've written. So it's more fun to talk about thinking between boxes. Thinking between boxes is essentially doing one of two things, very simply. It's either taking two things that appear to be the same and finding the dissonance between them, or taking two things that appear to have nothing to do with one another and finding the strange, the weird, the absurd commonality. I want to give you 2 samples. Hiya! Hiya, my name is Mel.
Hiya.
Hiya. I'm a think between boxaholic.
Hiya.
Hi. Thank you. And what is written here?
Hiya.
Hiya, right? But this is because we are in an English frame.
No, it's hyperventilation.
Yeah, it's not. It's not the joke about the it's not the joke about the tattoo. It's
only guys
it's if I take you outside of your convenient frame of thought, okay, and I open the page, what do I have here? Нужно. Нужно. Никто не говорит по-русски? Ah, okay. So if you had spoken Russian,
Нужно is give me?
Нужна is a Siberian princess who was brutally murdered in the early 15th century by dogs. And if you believe that, then you can believe anything. The point I'm trying to make, and here I'm going to turn this over now, and I'm going to ask you, what is this, right? So if you're a student, what are you going to say? In a student frame of mind, what are you going to say? Huh? It's a piece of paper. It's going to be an exam. It's going to be your cheat sheet, right? Especially in Israel. I think that creativity in Israel is not what we teach in school. It's what the students do to avoid learning. So if you were a student, you would call this a blank piece of paper, right? But if I took you out of that frame of mind and I said, okay, look at the white picture here, okay, and pretend that you're Canadian for a moment. What do you see now? Well, what you see is a window in February. And if I had another piece of paper, what would you see then? Well, you'd see the same window 1 year later. So it turns out that most creativity is not thinking outside the box. It's not thinking inside a box. It's connecting two boxes that do not appear to be connected. When I started preparing the course on creative thinking, I did something very stupid, and I started to read literature, scientific literature, on creative thinking. Now, why is this stupid? This is stupid because scientists, right, they have a scientific frame of mind, right? So they do research. Now, to do research, you have to have a questionnaire on creativity. You have to have an exam, right? So there's all kinds of creativity exams. Some of them are open, where you have to draw a picture or invent something or do a marshmallow challenge. And some of them are close answered like that, connecting the 9 dots. Okay? It turns out that there's a real dichotomy between the researches. Half of the research suggests that creativity is childish, that inventors and creative people are childish. Half of the studies find that there's no correlation between childishness and creative thinking. How could that be? Well, don't all raise your hands.
Because they don't have a frame. Children don't have a frame of thinking. So that they can be more creative. They're not told how to think at that stage.
Okay, so, but okay, you haven't answered the question, Clyde, about why half of the research supports creativity being a childish. I mean, it was Einstein, right, who said that if an idea doesn't appear absurd, right, there's no hope for it. So let me ask you the following question. If I were to ask you, what adjectives would you associate with a creative person? Please raise your hand.
Creative person.
What I'll say in Espanol.
No, in English.
No, I can tell you. Los zapatitos me aprietan, las medias me dan calor, y la muchachita de enfrente me tiene loco de amor.
Who is?
What was the question?
No, I didn't hear what you said.
I forgot what I said. What did I say?
So no question.
Okay, so we have here crazy. That's an adjective?
I love it. I think crazy is the best. I mean, good crazy.
No, but certifiably crazy? Who's writing this down? Okay.
Why are you trying to be scientific about that?
I'm not, I'm just asking. I'm trying to clarify. Clarificación. Okay, more adjectives to ascribe a creative person. We're all creative people. What adjectives do we call ourselves other than Michigan?
Well, free.
Huh?
Free.
Free. Free is great.
A detonator.
Detonator is great.
Adaptive.
Intelligent.
Adaptive is wonderful.
Independent.
Independent is great.
Solving problems.
Solving problems is wonderful. Put it in. I'm going to argue with you in a minute.
Great.
Noam. Adjective to describe a creative person.
A creative person.
Yes. Adjective.
An
Well, let me ask you questions while you're thinking.
Imaginative.
Huh?
Risk taker.
Imaginative, dreaming, good.
Risk taker, I think.
risk
taker.
lover.
Risk
Would you
lover.
say that? Would you say that a creative person is afraid of failure?
Yeah.
A creative person is afraid of failure.
Loving to fail.
No.
Would you say?
You
Would,
can. You
would-
can. You,
Why you gotta wear-
Bill, you can deal with.
Yeah,
You can
okay.
deal with.
it's somebody who can deal with failure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Would you say that a creative person is somebody who observes things?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sure.
Observant.
Sure.
Would you say that a creative person is a person who asks a lot of questions?
Yes.
Yes. Of course.
Has flexible boundaries and
Yeah.
frames of thought. Okay, and
Rebellious.
would it be somebody who's rebellious? Great, that's awesome. Somebody
Rebellious.
who is afraid of appearing silly or not afraid?
No.
Not afraid of appearing, actually doesn't mind appearing silly, right? So what if we just, can you read these adjectives to everybody now?
It's a crazy, free, adaptive.
Slowly.
Okay.
Lentissimo.
Crazy, free, adaptive, independent, solving problems, risk lover, imaginative, observer, it's the verb question, X questions, have flexible boundaries, it's a rebel, it's not afraid, whatever.
Magnifico. Who have we just described? Please raise your hand.
Makes no sense.
Who have we just described? What would you say about somebody who notices everything, asks a lot of questions, is not afraid to fall down and get back up afterwards, has flexible frameworks, notices everything?
What child?
A child. About how old?
Three.
Uh,
Six. Three.
Up to.
Six.
Between 3 and 6.
Yeah.
Okay. So how could it be that we've just described a child and creativity, what it's not associated with childishness, with being able to jump into a pile full of soap suds or invent, I need your help here to grab that thing, a saxo recorder, which Hagai Cohen built for me. And I'm going to play now for you. And you have to be particularly silly to invent one of these and to play it. So what are we saying? We just described a 4-year-old child. So that's why some of the research supports a association between a young child, right, and creativity. And especially for those of you who were in Hanoch Piven's talk, and he said that creativity is all about having fun. I mean, how strange is that? To make millions of dollars by having fun? Doesn't make any sense, does it? So let's go back to children. So you're a 4-year-old child and you're having lots of fun, and then you go to something which was invented by Sir Robert Owen from Britain 200 years ago, which is called school. And the original idea of kindergarten, right, which is a kindergarten, a garden for children, which the idea came from Pestalozzi and his followers 200 and some odd years ago, which is education should come from the heart and the head and the hand. So the early kindergartens were kindergartens. They were supposed to nurture children, to be children. Then Robert Owen had a better idea. He said, I have factories in my city, in New Lanark, and I have lots of poor kids that don't have jobs. I will put them in school. I will teach them to be very obedient. And then when they graduate, they'll know how to read, write, and do some mathematics, and they will be able to work in my factories. And that's how our modern Western schools started. And what do we tell children in school? Do we encourage them to ask questions? No, we encourage them to answer questions. If they get the right question, right, then they advance to the second grade. So if I ask you, for example, let's say you're in first grade, good morning.
Hi.
No, hello teacher. Sir, sir. How much is 2 and 2?
4.
Okay, so, yeah, but okay, now try 11. How much is 2 and 2?
2 and 2.
Yeah.
4.
No, try 11, try 11. How much is 2 and 2?
11.
That's a terrible answer. You don't get, you stay in grade 1 for the rest of your life.
You're not allowed
But-
so much to tell kids they're wrong nowadays.
Um,
Maybe you can try again.
all right.
Maybe you have a better answer.
So
You
give me a
don't-
better answer than 2 and 2. Try 1. 2 plus 2 equals?
22.
Okay.
11.
11 is good. And 1 is also a good answer. And probably every other answer except 4 is a better answer than 4. Right? But that's how you flunk out of school, right? And end up on the outside of society. Now I know there's many of you who didn't finish grade 1, but but entrepreneurs, I didn't finish kindergarten, but entrepreneurs, right, are the minority of people who manage to leave the education system and still succeed in life. Most of them are cleaning carpets. So then you go through school, right, where you get the right answer, and you're not supposed to have fun, you're not supposed to think or be obedient, and then you go through school and you go to college, and you get the right answers in college. Then you come out of college and you find that you can't get a job. And the reason that you can't get a job is because all of the jobs that or many of the jobs that we know today are not going to, they either don't exist anymore or they won't exist in 5 years. When I was a kid, I'm very old, there were elevator men and milkmen and bread men and egg men and bank tellers. In a couple of years, there are not going to be bank tellers. There won't be waiters or waitresses in restaurants. And most of the jobs we know won't exist. And the people who get jobs are the people who are able to invent their own job. Okay? Or in the case of Steve Jobs, who invented his own job by combining technology with calligraphy, right? And coming up with one of the greatest advances of computers. So let's go back for a moment to the brain of the child and the brain of the adult. Okay? So we've talked about the 4-year-old. Now let's talk about the adult. The adult is somebody who's been to college, he studied engineering, he studied computer science, he has a big box full of know-how and knowledge. And I don't want to knock that. And if you say that creativity is problem solving, right, to a great extent it is. Okay? There's only one problem with problem solving. And what's the problem with problem solving?
That you suppose that there is a problem.
Exactly! You get a star at the end of the... Can you elaborate, por favor?
Yeah, that the beginning is a shit. It's a mess, the beginning.
Okay,
The
so
beginning of,
no one.
yeah.
Yeah. So what do you have to do before you've identified a problem that needs solving?
Before you identify it?
No, if I come to you and I say there's a problem that needs solving, 32% of the people in the world, yes, are left-handed, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No.
It could be an opportunity.
I made it up, but let's say it's true, okay? So you do some research on it, right?
Yes.
Okay. What did you lack a minute ago that you have now?
The knowledge of the problem.
Yes.
Information.
Yes. The knowledge of the problem. Who came up with the problem?
You.
Okay. So what is that? That is called a problem ideation, hypothesis building, right?
Yes.
And what I've come to think in my teaching of the students is that creativity is actually an almost dichotomous two-step process. And I didn't invent this approach, but the people who invented it, like Norman Potterhooks, most of you have never heard of him, right? Because if you had heard of him, you would tell me I'm mispronouncing his name. He was a guy who was an editor of a Jewish magazine, not a Jewish magazine, but a magazine that had many Jewish writers in New York, right? And he said something amazing about creativity. And so did Arthur Koestler. You all know Arthur Koestler. And essentially, if I take what both of them said together, they say it's the coming together of the impossible connection between the child within us who has crazy fucking, don't write fucking, please, who has, oh shit. who has crazy ideas, okay? The impossible coming together of the child within us who has crazy ideas with the adult, yeah, who is connected enough to his childness to take those absurd, crazy, wacky ideas seriously. In that case, thinking is really connecting between two boxes, okay? For us, it's connecting what appears to be dichotomous, you know? You're either an adult or a child, aren't you? But inventive people are usually both together. So that is the answer to the first question I asked. If you look at problem solving as the creative process, okay, which it can be, okay, you can have a creative solution to a problem, then you're looking at the adult who's using his box to come up with a solution within the box because you've already invented the box. But 75% of that comes at the earlier stage. It's at the stage of the stupid, ridiculous question. You know, like if you have a Airbnb for people, why can't you have it for dogs or bacteria, right? I'm going to come home and I'm going to make Airbnb for bacteria. You know, where you're going abroad and you want to leave your bacteria somewhere, and or coins that actually are made out of corn and degradable plastic, that you actually have to fight to give to somebody, right? So these are crazy things that you come up with, and then the adult solves it. Now, why are these dichotomies important? Because most inventions are things that should not be related together, that you're forced to put together. Okay? And usually they can come from a category and a discipline. They can come from a question and an answer. They can come from a language, you know, mixing two languages together. And when you think about it, a lot of people claim that the comedians are actually more creative than we are. Okay? Because what are they doing all the time? They're taking, what is a joke? A joke is taking one frame of mind and then bringing you all of a sudden to the punchline, which is another frame of mind, another state of mind. And that's where the super creativity of a good joke comes from. So let's go back to dichotomies, for example. So in school, that's all we learn, right? We learn dichotomies. You know, you're either right-handed or you're left-handed. You're either Jewish or you're not Jewish. You're either a teacher who knows all the answers or an idiot who's a student. You either keep kosher or you don't keep kosher. You either like summer or you like winter, right? And everything that we learn in school is dichotomous. But when you start looking at creativity, creativity is taking these dichotomous things and finding the crazy, unexpected association between them. And I'm just going to talk about Lewis Carroll for a moment. And yes.
Just a question. What do you think what happened before school was followed by so many people? 100 years ago, 80% of the people didn't go to school. So what happened then?
There was less creativity.
They were less creative.
Yeah.
So school is not so bad.
No, school is not bad. School is bad for, look. Oh, that's complicated.
Yes, it is.
If the world were full of people that thought like 4-year-olds, then you'd only have the first part of the process. You'd have people wandering around, right, asking all kinds of stupid questions with nobody to take them seriously. Now, I'm not saying that he's not right. Of course he's right. You need the combo. You need the combo. You need the guy who's wandering around with his dog and sees the birds on the fur of the coat. I'm talking about George Mastral. And say, oh, I wonder how that sticks. I can invent Velcro, right? But he had to combine this observation, which is a childish thing because children are observant, with his adult ability to invent and to solve problems. I'm not saying you don't need both of them. There are not very many US patents that are granted to 4-year-olds. All I'm saying is that the 4-year-old within us is the one who comes up with the wackiness that's associated with thinking between boxes. I'm just going to end with Lewis Carroll because I love this. And so if you want to take this and turn it into a game, it's very simple. Lewis Carroll wrote Jabberwocky about 150 years ago? About. And Jabberwocky is a poem with nonsense, right? Lewis Carroll was a great writer of nonsense. Now, if you go to an engineer, right, who is used to thinking inside the box and so on, he'll tell you that it's a lot of nonsense. And we all will, but how come we love Lewis Carroll if it's nonsense? Because there's something that's super creative in nonsense. And the same thing about gaming and science fiction and thinking about worlds that don't exist. Because when we take these dichotomies of the worlds that don't exist with the world that does exist, that's when we come up with ingenious things that we can apply to the real world. So Lewis Carroll did two very, very wacky things. I would have loved to meet that guy, but not if I was a young child, especially a female one. But had I met Lewis Carroll, okay, he would have been working on inventing a word game called Scrabble. He invented the forerunner of Scrabble. And he also did one more crazy thing. Lewis Carroll liked to make up words that didn't exist. Okay? You take two words that have nothing to do with one another, or two suffix and prefix, like Jabberwocky, frumpish, frumish, mangsome, and he wrote a poem of nonsense words. Right? I'm going to misquote now. How did it start? 'Twas brillig, right? Brillig. Okay, so it's brilliant and something else, so it's not brilliant. But when you read it, 'twas brillig and the gyby waves did wimmer and mumble in the way, while mimsy were the borgoves and the mome wraths outgrape. Right? So you get a sense. Come to my arms, my beamish boy, right? After he had slain the Jabberwock, yeah? Who burgled through the tumble. So you read the poem, and all these words that Lewis Carroll invented. And the crazy thing about that is today when you play Scrabble, which is arguably the grandson of Lewis Carroll's invention, these have become words in the English dictionary that you can use in the Scrabble game. So the game that I like to play is called Inventing New Words. And the great thing about it is anybody can do it. When Lewis Carroll invented the word manxome and brillig and gyry, words that we acknowledge today that have a meaning, he could not go into Google and see whether there's anybody else in the universe that has searchably used the same word. So one of the things that I've done is that I've invented a game, which I don't have a name for yet, okay? And you can play it in Spanish if you like. And it's a game called Inventing Words for Google. So you sit down, and I have about 40 new words to my credit, and I'm sure somebody now is going to play the game and find 400 words. But the rules of the game are you take a word in English or another language, and another word, and you make a new word, and then you search on Google, and if the word doesn't exist before, you write it somewhere, in some HTML website or something where Google can read it, and then you come back a week later and you claim that as your word. So, for example, if you take the word icicle, right, icicle and a sanatorium, icicle, you don't have in Barcelona. These long things made out of ice. If you take the word icicle and sanatorium, right? They ostensibly have nothing to do with one another, right? But they could. For example, if you need to go to a sanatorium because you have a phobia that an icicle is going to fall on your head and kill you, right? So then I invented a word called the icicutorium, which is the place you go to recover from an icicle disease, an icicle-borne disease. And you'd be surprised, but most of these things have somebody's thought of already. So the great challenge that I'm going to leave you with is this game that I've invented, which is called actually, Carol invented it. It's called Invent Your Own New Words and claim them forever as yours. So please feel free now to tell me, how much time do we have, please?
Hold on. Half an hour.
Oh, great.
No, 20 minutes.
20 minutes? Yeah, okay.
Okay. So the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to teach you another game that I play with my students. Because if I'm correct that everything is connected to everything, then you can play one more game. In addition to the word game, you can play a game called Everything is Connected to Yogurt. Okay. Because we could do, give me the things that are obviously connected to yogurt.
Spoon.
No. Eva.
Spoon, no.
Quickly, spoon. Milk, white.
Cow.
Cow. Ball?
A bowl.
Yes, of course.
Where do you put yogurt?
Granola.
In a bowl.
Yeah.
Okay, but a ball's very good.
No,
You
I
see,
didn't say ball.
supermarket.
I said
no, but I heard ball.
I said.
You see, that's another talk, but that's actually the way that life evolved, is by mistakes, right? DNA. So we could make a yogurt ball.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we've just invented something. Bowl, huh?
Granola.
Granola,
Child.
huh?
Child.
Chai?
Child.
Child?
Child.
Yeah.
Lactobacillus. Lactobacillus.
Agree with you.
Yeah.
Now, okay, that's,
Again,
yes.
my baby
Yeah.
drinks the straw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Straw.
Okay, so excellent. Okay, so that's very simple. You know, anybody can do that. Now we have to play the childish game of finding something that has absolutely no connection whatsoever with yogurt. Because that's where inventivity comes from, doesn't it? And you can play this with anything, but I particularly love yogurt because I'm a microbiologist. So play the game with me. Find me something that's not connected to yogurt. And I need a referee umpire here who's connected to Google somehow.
My good.
Huh?
My good.
What is that?
This is your good and my good.
Yeah, but that's connected. Yogurt, bite. Okay, something, but register that one. That's a good one. Yes, more ideas, please, of things that have absolutely no connection to yogurt.
Map.
Huh?
A map.
A map. Okay. Wouldn't
Map
you?
of yogurt factory.
Yeah. Here. Okay. Clyde, that was good.
The moon.
Huh?
The moon.
Okay. The moon actually.
It's made out of yogurt.
It's made out of. It's not. It's not. It's not.
The moon?
It's not. The moon is made out of another milk product.
Oh, it's a different cheese.
The moon tiger.
And the reason, and somebody said mice, right? But the reason that mice isn't connected to yogurt, even though I've written a children's book about it, but the reason that the moon, like it goes away and it comes back, is because mice eat it during the month. So more ideas. Please be farther out.
Glasses.
Glasses, huh?
A tiger.
Glasses? How could you see what's written on the yogurt if you don't have glasses? Okay, keep going.
C.
Huh?
C. C.
C. The C?
Yeah, mar.
The C is not connected with yogurt?
Where do you think that
Find a connection, but
when you eat a
it's
yogurt,
not
where do you think it finishes?
Okay. Noam, I rest my case. So I think that I'm going to let you now comment, please, and we'll just leave it at that because after Noam. So it turns out that when you take two things, any two things that do not appear to be connected, and then you make that creative step to find the creative wacky connection, okay? It might be one of the following. It might be a joke. It might be a brand. Yeah? It might be a scientific hypothesis. It might be a musical piece. And for me, I don't I don't distinguish between creativity in any kind, shape, or form. Because why should we? What difference does it make if you're a scientist coming up with a clever experiment or a musician doing some great improvisation? For me, it's all the same. I'm interested, pleased to hear your feedback. I talked too long. Thank you. Somebody tell me I'm wrong, please.
Oh, no, may I jump in? I've been for close to 4 decades now in the creative world of advertising. I learned that, except for geniuses, that there are some, of course.
You're looking at 30 of them.
Exactly. We've learned that we will eventually reach to creative solutions by following 3 steps.
Oh.
Okay? We adopt. We adopt. We do our work, we kind of look around, as a rule of thumb, we never adopt anything. If we find a story or an idea, we don't go beyond 20% of it, because then it's copying. But then we adopt from
Isn't what you do called copy?
Excuse me?
Copywriters, don't they write advertising?
Oh yeah.
So they're supposed to copy.
Yeah. So we adopt. Then obviously, when we bring in ideas from all over the place, we put them, we set them on our canvas of discussion, and we adapt. We live in a small country, Central America. Many of the ideas we find aren't as proper or good, and we adapt them and mix them and work on them. And then we follow the 3rd step, which is we aggregate. So by following those 3 steps, we adopt, adapt, aggregate. In Spanish, adopto, adapto, agrego. We found we oftentimes find ourselves with creative solutions. Would you call that a valid creative process? I mean, what's the result of following something like that in order to achieve a different idea? Is that for you? How would you say it? Because sometimes creative, for many, is something that you will come up with in a white canvas.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. Thank you so much. Most people, in my experience, if you give them a white piece of paper and you say, draw something, even creative people have trouble. Because what am I could do anything, right? I once had that test, and I took 20 minutes, and then I drew an idiotic stick figure. Okay? So if you give anybody a white board to invent or to do anything, even creative people have trouble dealing with that. If you give them just one thing, they have also a problem, because they're going to draw a tree, right? If you give them a certain number of variables, people usually do well. So essentially what you're doing at every stage is you're thinking between boxes, but let me zoom out. There are about 60 methods of creative thinking.
Sure.
Okay? There is, first of all, let's talk about, Sir?
Yes.
Okay. There are methods of problem solving. Let's talk about TRIZ and SIT. Okay? You know the TRIZ method? TRIZ was invented by Altshuler, a Russian inventor and patent maven, who took about 1 million patents and realized that problem solving has about 60 categories.
60?
About 60 categories. So there's only so many physical things you can do with an idea. You can turn it over, change this, change that, change the color, change the vibration, change what. And from that he built an algorithm so that if you know what your problem is, okay, and you can define it, his algorithm will solve it for you. And this is amazing. Let me ask you a riddle that I wrote once. A family goes away for the weekend. They see the weather's nice. They go away for the weekend. When they come back, they find that their house has disappeared. What's the answer to this riddle? Of course, you have to go out of the regular frame of mind.
He's not.
They live in a van.
They live in the North Pole.
Yes. Okay. So, it's Inuits who built an igloo, right? So I said, okay, from my philosophy, a riddle and a scientific hypothesis and advertising, it's all the same. So I plugged that riddle into TRIZ, and it solved it. It said, look for phase transition. And I said, wow, that's brilliant. Tris is brilliant. If you know what your problem is, it can help you solve it. So the only problem with Tris is it doesn't help you to come up with the problem. Same with SIT. Same with brainstorming. What is brainstorming? Brainstorming is a couple of people in a company, and they sit and they talk about how they're going to solve a problem. So imagine the people at Polaroid having a brainstorming. It takes a minute to develop the picture, and the reds fade over time. How are we going to fix that? And then 3 months later, there's no Polaroid. Because they haven't ideated the right question, which is not how to fix the chemistry within the camera. It's what's going to happen to cameras. So there's TRIZ, and there's SIT, and there's 6 thinking hats of De Bono, and there's dozens of creative thinking. We even invented a creative thinking method. So what? The moment that you're following the guidelines, you have done one good thing and one bad thing. You've created certain boundaries, which is not a bad thing for human beings, but you've also created some boundaries, which is a bad thing for creative thinking. So that's the answer. Most of the creative thinking methods deal only with the problem solving. And that's because they're driven by industry. Right? How many industries have, okay, whatever creative thinking process, we're going to come up with all kinds of crazy association like norms. Okay? But, which, by the way, could lead to a startup, but, So I think that's the answer. There are creative methods that you can use, and they're very helpful. But they're helpful and anti-helpful at the same time.
Mel,
yes?
In your opinion, where is the thing in the human being mind that block the way to detect the problem or to make the answer or to start the creativity process?
Okay. Yeah. The reason that I come to these meetings is because I met Yossi Vardi 10 years ago, and he taught me something about creativity that I embrace, and you will find this in any Kinnernet that you go to. He said that the main stumbling block for creativity is the fear of appearing silly. The fear of appearing silly. And I said, wow, that's my man. So I went up to him and said, Yossi, take me, look. I can play saxo recorder, and the next thing I know, I'm invited to these crazy places, and I know very little about the internet. So I think that is the major stumbling block, because the moment that you are prepared to be silly, then you're prepared to make mistakes. And in my career, I succeeded only once, and I invented something, but that was a fluke. I invented 40 colossal mistakes. People invested money, I blew up a laboratory, and then I almost blew up an airplane shipping shoe spray to Japan and forgetting that it was 65% alcohol inside. Right? Yeah. So I'm lucky to be alive. But so I think that's the answer. Our fear of connecting, right, with this childishness. Now, David, we had this conversation. Kinnernet, it's something that's ephemeral. It's being able to jump like 3-year-olds in that suds and get soaking wet and have a good time, and 63 years old. Yes?
But then we're saying that the lack of creativity is because of a social reason, because of the image of other people toward us. But then we should all be creative in our own problems that don't involve others. And you can see many times where we lack creativity in problems that do not no one from the exterior comes into play. Yeah. So where is that? Why is there people that are more creative and less inside themselves? It's not only the outside,
okay, because this is what Arthur Kessler and Norman Podhart said, more than me. And they said you have to listen to your child inside you asking the peculiar questions. Sure. So I'll give you an example here, okay? Laura brought me a guitar so I could play for you, but the guitar has only 4 strings. So I can play half a song for you. Right? I can't play the whole song. Django Reinhardt, the famous guitarist, he burned his hand And he was one of the best jazz guitarists in the world, playing with 2 fingers. But he played he played amazingly. He developed a technique of playing. When Sutcliffe told Paul McCartney that he was leaving the Beatles, and the guy said, "Paul, you're going to have to play the bass now," right? He turned the bass around, because he's left-handed, and he invented his own method of playing the bass. And he became rock and roll's perhaps best bass player of the 60s. Okay? So there's many answers to that question. One of them is a predicament. So if you want to tune this guitar, you know, and we all learn that you tune a guitar, you go like this, right? And then you play the next string, right? And then you play it on the 5th, and then you go like that, right? So let's say that you don't have this string here, because we don't. How do I tune this? So most people would say, oh, well, you can't, right? But if you're desperate, you're going to remember, okay, so I'll go 5, and then that's equivalent to this one, and then I'll go 5 more, and then I can tune it based on this one. Okay? So it's basically, that's not rocket science, but that's asking your dumb question of a kid, how am I going to tune it? Most people will just walk away. They'll make an observation. It won't have any meaning to them. You know, but if you say, okay, you know, I want to play the guitar, that's a very childish thing, right? I'll figure out how to tune it without that string in the middle. Yes, please, somebody who wants to trash what I said, yeah.
I just want to come back to the point of the schools teaching the kids, and because I think the school try to prepare the kids for something that is needed in the society in that moment of the life.
That's right.
So yes, but wait. I know, or at least I think it's the reason.
But they screw it up.
But they are coming a little late, because of course.
How late?
1 century.
1 generation.
More.
1 century.
Mass.
Okay, let's say that you are preparing the kids today for what you think they need today, the society needs today, in the next 20 or 30 years, okay?
Do you really think that education prepares students for the world today?
Not at all.
Perhaps for the world
maybe here in Spain, where nobody is unemployed.
No, you are right, absolutely right. But any case, the programs in the school the school and the university try to prepare the people for the, let's say, for the situation of 20 years ago, okay? But what is interesting to ask here, perhaps, is, okay, which are the skills that we have to think, to transmit to the kids, and to focus the school for the skill of the next 20
Okay,
years.
so you want my answer?
Yes,
okay.
That's the question for you.
Okay, so my answer, first of all, I agree with you 500 million%. Okay, and the situation now, we have so much unemployment, is because we're losing jobs to computers and to robots, right? And we're not thinking between boxes. So the moment you teach somebody to think between the box, you say, okay, what are you studying? Okay, you're studying statistics, and your passion is football. Okay? There are websites that make billions of dollars out of statistics of football.
Fantasy League.
So yeah, so the whole idea, what we're not teaching the kids, and I disagree a little with the guy from TED, Sir Ken, right? Because what I say, and I say this to my kids and it works, is everything that you study, connect it to a box of your passion. If you like football, everything you study yogurt, think about how yogurt can impact on your passion. And then when you finish school, find a job that combines what you studied with your passion. Create a profession that doesn't exist. And this is what we're not teaching the kids. Because you don't get a good mark, right? If you think about statistics and football, because that's not in your exam. I would give an exam which was open-ended. You know, think about yogurt and something else. Actually, I do give those exams. So, but you're asking me. I'm not against disciplines. It's just that disciplines are so old-fashioned that we don't even know what they are. Can you get a job if you study physics in university today?
Mel, I have a question there. I'm passionate for chess, and still I don't play well. I just love the game. So that means that probably while I'm passionate, it's not my strength. So what would you say is the difference between finding your passion or your strengths?
No difference at all.
So I'm a good chess player?
No, no. My son was a really good soccer player, and when he was 16, he was injured very badly, and he couldn't play anymore. He's going to be the most amazing coach maybe in Europe.
Sure.
Okay, and he never was a really top soccer player, and after he was injured, of course not. So there's so many things that you can do, right? Where your yogurt is chess. Okay, we can sit down. I mean, the sky's the limit. Chess is, by the way, connected to everything.
Yeah.
I do career mentoring in business schools, and this is exactly what I say. It's because people come to me and ask me, what should I be? What career should I have? And I go, what are you passionate about? And going back to your chess thing, is that chess is all about strategy. So you may not be a good technical chess player, but you're good at strategy. So it's what kind of rules and what kind of things can you do which are good in strategy. So that's how you look at it. Instead of going, I have to be this, I have to be this, I have to be this. It's taking what you're passionate about and then expanding that into different aspects.
Yeah.
And finding your own career and finding your own job.
Yeah. Just let me say that I have now a website that allows anybody to become a published author in 5 minutes. And many of my books are lousy. And many of them are done in schools, by kids in 7th grade, and they have 3 pages. Right? But I'm all about democratization of everything. So it's not for me. Okay, don't be angry with me, but I'm going to tell you. I don't care if you're a really good chess player. Okay? What I care about is that you love your life and you love playing chess. And that is what is going to take you far. Because if there's 1 million people playing chess, how many people are going to win the tournament? No, you tell me.
About 1.
Yeah. So you're going to have 999 people who didn't win the tournament.
Exactly.
And they're jealous of that one guy. But if they are the best chess players that they can be, then you've won. Can't all be Bill Gates.
Just a consideration, there are many people, I think, today that really don't have a passion. Especially in between the young people.
Exactly.
So, does it mean for you something about education?
Of course.
Or we are saying something, or we are assuming something that's not real, that we expect everybody to have a passion, and that's not true.
No, I would say the following. This is where I agree with Sir Ken Robinson 100%, that teachers and schools do not look for the passions in the students. They never ask them what the passions are. They do not know who their students are. In Israel, you have 30 or 40 kids in the class. You don't even know their names, most teachers. So they're not even going to know, right? And the kids don't even know that you can collect stamps and corn and you can be the world expert in beetles and arthropods and whatever. They don't know even that. But imagine, how the world has become such a beautiful place that, let's say that 50 years ago, you had this thing for bean plants, okay? And you were a mediocre student all through school, but when you went home, you read about bean plants, and you grew bean plants, right? And then you didn't even invent, you became the blogger of bean plants of the whole world. And you make $1 million a month by advertising his stuff. That's the way the world is going. Everybody now has a voice. If you have a passion for anything, you can be, if you're not an inventor, you can be the world's #1 blogger in your passion.
Sure.
And we're not teaching that.
Now, which is your website for publishing?
It's called Yossi's going to kill me.
Let's go to the bush.
Our Books, Ourbooks.
Our Books?
With an X.
Oh, okay.
No, 2 O's.
2 O's and X.
Yeah.
Can I trade O for something else? Can I trade one O with something, another vowel maybe?
For my website? Yeah.
Get somewhere else.
Yeah. Our box.
I have a question also.
Yes, my dear Goldie, whom I
I
love.
think all people...
Am I going to love you after your question, though?
Probably.
Okay.
Crowd pleaser. Do you think all people should need to be creative? It's
Yes.
mandatory for everybody?
Yes.
Why?
Even a pilot?
You asked, what does why mean?
What
Does why mean?
I want?
Well, because everybody is creative. Everybody's creative. I mean, the moment you get up in the morning, right, and you look in your wardrobe and you say, what am I going to wear today? And should I put the raisins in my cereal before or after my bran? Okay? You're already being creative. We have so many choices that we have to make during the day. And we're always creating decisions. Okay? But here again, this goes to every facet of our lives. Let's say you're not getting along well with your wife.
No, impossible.
Huh?
No.
Let's say in a hypothetical.
Right?
Right?
All
You can be creative about that too. You can find a creative way to compromise with your wife. You know, like you dance together, she likes salsa, you like tango. And you dance together, and you're dancing salsa and she's dancing tango. So the answer is every facet of every human's being life, every moment that we're on the planet involves creative decisions.
No, because, and what about habits? Habits is how we move every day. It means if you, the first day you make the choice about if you're going to put the milk before the raisins or whatever, that's the first day you eat it. But the second, third, and whatsoever, you're going to copy the first day.
Yeah.
You're creative one day, and at the end of the day, our days repeat, most of our days.
Do you want me to answer you semantically?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
No.
Because you decide, it's a creative choice to have a habit. And I'm not being facetious. Because what do all the people here do, Noah? All the people sitting here take people's habits, right? And they break them and make startups. So if there isn't routine and there isn't a habit, there isn't an invention or innovation. The invented people, okay, can I just tell you my first invention that became a product? I was teaching a dentist how to plate bacteria on a plate. And he said to me, Mel, that doesn't make any sense. I said, what are you telling me? You're a dentist. Do I tell you how to put fillings in a tooth? Just watch what I'm doing. So I plate the bacteria on the plate. And he says to me again, it doesn't make any sense. I said, you're being really obnoxious even for a dentist. Just pay attention. And then like after a couple of times, and this is something that microbiologists have been doing for 70 years, including me, the way to plate. And then I said to him, you know what? He's right. You know, a dentist who doesn't have a habit, who doesn't have education in microbiology, looks at that and he says, what the hell is that? So I went home and I took a pencil and I stuck a pin in it, and it became my first invention. I would never have thought of it. He's on the patent.
But that's because it's his first time.
Exactly.
But you weren't
because
you hadn't done it 100 times.
I was creative in his sense because it was such a stupid idea, but I didn't say the fourth time it was a stupid idea or childish or wacky. The fourth time he said it, I said, you know what? You're right. And that was the adult decision, right? The moment I realized that that was an ideation of hypothesis, then I could solve the problem using all my schooling, which is what everybody's good at, right? If you know what the problem is. But it was based on a very stupid comment he had.
And I have something about that. I think that we create habits because we are really oriented into results and in order to be efficient.
Efficiency, exactly.
So it's
brain efficiency. Yeah, brain efficiency.
Yeah, but you're losing the magic on that because you are looking for the result and you are not living all the process.
we're losing magic, but it's impossible to live without habits. Because imagine every day you take your toothbrush, you have to think how to do it. It would be impossible for us to live if we didn't have habits. So
it would be amazing living without habits.
Yes, but there will be no evolution.
No, you can't have an invention.
Because nothing would stay.
Yeah.
Imagine the moment where you create something amazing, the next day you have to think about it again, because you don't create the habit.
No, you integrate that, but you
but
don't have to repeat that.
Then what's the point of
Then
creating
what's the
something?
point of integrating?
That you can build something new on
Yeah, let me help you. You need to have routine in order to break the routine.
Yeah.
And what they use on a habit.
That makes sense.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.